Hello and welcome back to the Black and White Pod. I'm Dave,
I'm Matt.
and this week we're talking about a comic called Undiscovered Country by Scott Snyder. It's one that I've read 3 times. Matt's holding it up for those watching on YouTube. He's read it once. It took quite some convincing on my part to get him to read it. He was resistant for a while. It's understandable. It's a bit of a dense read. It's definitely a Scott Snyder comic. So we're gonna just kind of talk about our general thoughts. Matt, what do you think? You've got like the most fresh view on this because like I said, this is the 3rd time I've read this. So
for sure. So Undiscovered Country by Scott Snyder. I really enjoy Scott Snyder for the most part. He definitely is a pretty, like you said, dense. His stories are pretty dense. I learned about him honestly through, I can't remember if it was Batman, but the story series that I really liked from him was American Vampire. That's what kind of got me hooked.
Yeah,
on
you've
Snyder.
always been an American Vampire guy.
I love that series.
Yeah. I need to check that out at some point because you've been recommending that for a long time.
I think you would really enjoy it, but he's a very like verbose writer, and yeah, this was interesting for me to. If I'm going to be honest, I don't want to bury the lead.
Please be honest.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. I want to put it out there that I did enjoy the book. I really wasn't overly. Issue 1 was good. There was a good cliffhanger. I liked how it ended, but I kind of like wasn't crazy feeling it until like the last 2 issues, and then primarily issue number 6. I don't know what I was necessarily thinking the story was going to be about or where it was kind of going, but this, for me, this is definitely a series. Well, this first trade was definitely, this is why you don't bail off a series. And like when we're like with our monthly comics, Dave's like, I don't like something, so I drop off of it. This would definitely have been a series that I would have dropped off of. Probably like issue 3, I'd have been like, oh yeah, I'm not feeling it. But like, I think it's important that you see a story through that whole arc. So that's why I don't really do that, because once it got to issue 6, I really did enjoy the whole process of reading it. But
I actually feel the same way about this comic because when I got issue 1, I read it and I was like, okay, I'm interested because this is pretty cool. I like the concept. I like the foundation with which the story and the world is being built on. So then I read issue 2 when it came out, and then I started reading issue 3 when it came out, and I was like, I don't remember what happened in the first issue.
Yeah.
And that's when I made the decision to just wait until I got all 6 issues and then just read the arc at one time. And then like that's when it really clicked for me. And I was like, okay, this is definitely a comic I need to read in an arc, and I can't read monthly. So for the second arc, I actually waited until I got 7 through 12. And then I read them all at the same time, and I a much superior experience reading that in 6-issue blocks.
Yeah, and you definitely said that. You're like, this is. I was like, oh, because I just get excited when you're into something. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it. I'll pick up the trades. I'll start picking it up month to month, and you're like, dude, like, don't do that to yourself, man. Like, you don't want to do that. Like, you want to wait for the arc. And honestly, I see myself like I am pulling back on my monthly series because I do enjoy reading comics as a whole volume or getting the trade. Like it's really true. Like I've been reading older Spider-Man comics, and the decompression that's in comics right now, like they don't write comics like they used to back in the day. They were very much so standalone stories, and they continued on, but like you got a whole story. And if you're not really reading comics, you might not understand what we're kind of saying. You're like, well, of course it's a story. It's 20 pages or whatever. But no, like there's clearly a begin. In older comics, there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. These comics, you need to read all 6 issues to get the story. So that's just my opinion.
That's a whole another can of worms that we could open up someday about the metamorphosis of the comic book arc.
For sure.
Yeah. So in general, I don't really enjoy Scott Snyder. I liked his Batman run until the end, and then he kind of lost
Bloom.
me. Yeah.
Mr. Bloom with
yeah. And
Ooh.
We got
Ooh.
another of the official Texas soft drink. This one's caffeine free because it's late here.
Okay. While you're sipping, did you read the last arc of his Batman series?
I read everything up through Metal.
Did you like the last arc?
Yeah, it was okay.
Because that was like his definitive, like Batman's last story. That was like, I really enjoyed that last arc. It was like him and the Joker. Maybe we'll review that later at some point, but yeah. But you don't enjoy Snyder.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with Scott Snyder is the same issue that I have with a lot of what Warren Ellis has written, where it's just, it gets to be a little bit too much.
Yeah.
For me, like everything he did with Dark Knight's Metal, I was just not interested in it. Like,
I didn't read it.
I thought Court of Owls
great
was a great start, and that's what initially was like, oh, maybe I should read more Scott Snyder comics, and I don't think that's the case. I probably shouldn't, but I similar to Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man run, the longer Batman went on with Scott Snyder, the less I was enjoying it. I was so happy when Tom King took over that comic because I loved that Tom King run. But I'm way off topic. Point being, I'm a little concerned about Undiscovered Country because what I don't want to have happen is what happened with Batman, where the longer this comic goes, the less I'm going to enjoy reading it. And I think I'm making an educated guess just based on the spiral and the different parts of the United States that they have to go and visit in the comic. This is probably going to run 50 to 60 issues.
Okay.
There's nine parts of the spiral, 6-issue arcs. That gives you 54 issues. Probably one more arc to tie things up, so maybe you go to 60. I don't know. That's just my guess. So I think we have a lot left to discover. Pun unintended.
Well played.
But maybe we should talk about what this comic is even about. Do we need
to
get into that?
Yeah, we probably should.
I don't want to spoil it, but it's also it's been on for over a year and a half, right? I mean, the third arc just finished, and it's a 6 on 3 off schedule. So
yeah, I don't think you're really spoiling it, even if you go
21 months or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we should definitely to give some context about what it's about.
So the short version is 30 years before this comic takes place, the United States shut itself off from the rest of the world. Walls went up. An energy field went over the airspace of the United States, so you could not see in. No one has left the United States. No one has heard from the United States. No one gets in. No one gets out. If you didn't come back before they sealed off the country, you are now an expat of the United States of America, and you better find somewhere else to live because you're not part of the USA anymore.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the premise of this world. It's been 30 years. No one has seen inside of the United States or heard from anybody there. There's a global pandemic. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's like
there's a disease called Sky that is killing the human race, and we don't have much time left. I think we have like 2 months or something left to live. Not a long time. And then suddenly a message is received from inside the United States saying, hey, we can help you cure Sky. Fly to these coordinates. We'll let you in, and we'll help. We'll save the world.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where the series kind of gets insane.
Yeah. So that message was broadcast to everyone. Was like, how did they get the 6 or 7 people? I kind of missed that part.
So
because they were like a specialized handpicked team, but like how did they get there?
There's someone named Aurora in the United States that is potentially an architect or a ruler or president. We don't know yet, but
okay.
There is a message from Aurora embedded within that message.
Okay,
these 6 people are the ones that need to come.
Yep,
specifically these 6 people.
Got you. And I thought it was like there's just like a lot of, I don't know if tropes is the right word, but I'm going to say tropes in this story. Like the sayings that we say, like some guy gets killed and the guy's like, "Don't tread on me," and like
Yeah.
that, all those different American tropes. But like when we were reading it, the thing I did like about the issues kind of leading up, they would flash back and they would tell a particular character's story. And when I was reading this, I was just like, man, this reminds me of, that the Statue of Liberty, give me your huddled masses and tired masses. Like everyone, they were different and they were all unique. And like the United States is supposed to be accepting of all kinds of different people of different races and creeds and religions and all that. And like the team was very diverse, except for maybe the brother and sister. But there are people from kind of all over. And I was like, I don't know. You can tell that Scott Snyder and Charles Soule, I read the back matter of what they were saying and kind of how this concept came about. Mm-hmm. They did a lot of research on America. They worked with the military. They worked with, they did a lot of background research about this. So that's why I also thought that's really interesting.
Cool. I didn't dig that deep into it.
The whole, this whole thing came about because Snyder and Soule were at some Wizard World show or something. And they would go and they would actually, they didn't know each other, but they would run and see different parts of the country at the different cons. And that kind of got the wheels turning a little bit about, okay, what if we did this comic about all these different parts of the country? And then, it was pretty interesting. I was just like, I wonder where they came up with this concept, but that's kind of where it came from.
So one of the things you mentioned about kind of like the tropes of America, like that, the "don't tread on me," and, all that kind of stuff. So I actually really appreciated a lot of those like callbacks to classic Americana. I think though those are contained to this first arc. I think it's only because of the Destiny Man's area and everything that takes place within his area of rule is like this kind of weird Americana throwback.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. So,
but who knows? Because that's not the last time we see the Destiny Man. So
yeah. So the Destiny Man, you can explain this. He was just like the main antagonist. He's trying to, what is he trying to do exactly? He's trying to prevent Uncle Sam, who is a guy named Uncle Sam Elgin.
Sam Elgin. Yep.
He's part of the team that he's working with the team of people that have come into the United States to get a key to go on this spiral.
Not only is Sam helping them get the key, he's the one that sent the message.
Yes, and he sent the message as well too.
He's also the person that Daniel and Charlotte saw when they were leaving the States when their parents were shipping them away.
Correct.
We have so much more to learn about Sam as this comic goes on.
Yeah, and I think there was just like a lot of. This was definitely a setup arc, in my opinion. Like I just, after I got done reading it, issue 6, I really enjoyed it, but I'm like, man, there's so much I don't know. Like most comics, I can kind of get where they're going a little bit. I have no clue where this is really going. And I think that's kind of exciting and fun though.
Well, there's a sharp left turn coming when you start the second arc.
Good.
I'll tell you that.
Good.
So the Destiny Man is, in my opinion, one of the coolest looking antagonists.
Yeah.
In like modern, like kind of independent sci-fi, that sort of vein of comic books. I freaking love the Destiny Man. One of my favorite scenes with the Destiny Man is when he changes his little antlers on his helmet. Yeah. And like just the subtle things, like he puts those like red antlers in, and then his word bubbles change to having a red outline around them after he does that. Yeah, they were blue before when he had like the blue horns. Then they changed to red. There's cool little stuff like that they did that I thought was really cool.
This is what you pick up on the multiple rereads that I didn't get.
Yeah, third time through. So talking about things that you didn't notice the first time through, or even the second time through, I wrote this down. I need to find where it was at. I think it was in chapter 6. No, maybe 5. I'm so sorry. Fill some space while I'm looking. Never mind. I found it.
Okay,
sorry.
I'll shut up.
It's in chapter 4. So the 4th issue of the arc. this is after there's a major event that occurs. The team gets captured by the Destiny Man. We also find out that Daniel is potentially not who we thought he was, and he makes a deal for Daniel and Charlotte to leave with the key to go meet Sam to betray Sam at the door,
Yep.
so the Destiny Man can walk the spiral. The spiral is this pathway through the United States that eventually gets to the center, where assumedly Aurora will be at. So Daniel and Charlotte are in this car that is propelled by two giant eyeballs tied to the car that eat the road as they go. However, at the same time, the other people in the group escape from capture with the help of Buzz, Valentina's little like
Robot drone thing.
helper. Yeah, Valentina's a reporter. She's got a drone that films all of her journalistic endeavors and helps with editing and has some light combat mechanics as well. So Buzz helps them escape, but Charlotte is also there with them escaping. So right now, Charlotte is in two places at once. And what I don't know is if that's a massive editing mistake or a very subtle hint of something else that's going to happen later.
We're going to find out. And we didn't talk about like Daniel and Charlotte. I think they're two of the main characters. They're the brother sister duo. Like Dave said in the beginning of the comic, you see that they are kicked out overseas and their parents make them leave the United States. Charlotte is a doctor who is trying to find a cure for the sky. And Daniel, I didn't pick up what like branch or what country he was for, but he's pretty much the soldier archetype guy. Special forces, highly trained.
I think he's a mercenary, actually.
Like a mercenary, because they mentioned like bounty. There's like bounties on his head or something like that. So, they're definitely two of the main characters, and you're kind of following them in their journey. And there was something after I read issue 6, and I kind of was flipping through. Dave was talking about a double cross, and Snyder. That's what I'm talking about. Snyder. This is definitely probably something I should reread. But like the first issue, when they're running around as kids, or the second issue, they're talking about a double cross, and there happens to be a double cross later down.
I wrote that down actually.
That's good writing.
It's on page 28, and I wrote down Scott Snyder told us exactly what Daniel was going to do.
Exactly. Yeah,
and I didn't notice until the third time I read.
No, it was good, man. It was, like I said, it was out there. I didn't know what to expect, but it did come together for me in the end. So I am excited to read the next volume.
I think some of our discussion, to those that know nothing about this comic, probably sounds a little scattered. And that's because this comic is a little scattered.
It is.
There's so much going on and so much that's unexplained. And you kind of have to figure out a lot of things for yourself, which I think is sort of a hallmark of Scott Snyder's writing style.
Yeah.
Potentially. I haven't read a ton of Scott Snyder, but it feels like that's kind of a thing that he likes to do.
This was very scattered. That was, you put it excellently. This was a very scattered work. And I just, like I said earlier, I could see how people could bail off of it if they weren't feeling it or single issue wise.
I'm committed now. Trade.
I'm committed now. I bought 3 trades, so I'm good. I'm going to read them. I hope it comes together a little bit more for me, but this definitely set the ground. It set the floor. It set the floor for the series. So I think it did what it needed to do. Yeah.
Good. No,
I'm good.
You refuse.
Yeah, I'm good.
You refuse.
I'm good. I refuse. I yield.
You cede your remaining time. Fair enough.
I yield. Yeah.
So another thing that I think could be really difficult as far as like entry point into this series is that every single character's backstory, and I love the way that the backstories were told throughout the first 6 issues. Really, I think it's 5 issues, 4 issues, but even their backstories are complex.
They are. Daniel's was complex.
You are introduced to so many characters that get little to no explanation and very little panel time that it's easy to forget things and people. This last reread through, I think I can finally definitively say that Ace had my favorite backstory, Ace Kenyatta. I think he's one of the most, if not the most interesting character in the comic. He is the foremost expert on what's happened in America in the last 30 years. He has a lot of theories that everyone in the world just writes him off as being crazy. He actually ends
Yeah.
up getting committed.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
He also ends up being right about a lot of the things that he was saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
But one of my favorite moments in the first arc is actually up behind me on my little signboard. Um, when they're getting captured in this marketplace in the Destiny Man's town, Ace is in the middle of doing an experiment on a coin that he brings
Yeah.
in with him to the United States. And one of his theories is that um, it hasn't been 30 years that America
It's
has
been
been closed
50.
off, that it's been longer. He thinks it could have been 50 years.
Yeah.
And while he's doing this experiment, they get captured, and he's struggling to see the coin, to see what color the coin turns after he put the solution on it.
Yes.
He has a moment of panic, and the last thing he says is, "We can't ever leave." And I think that phrase will end up being so incredibly important to however long this series lasts. For the rest of this series, the passage of time and whether or not they can leave, I think that's going to run through every arc until things finally get hashed out at the end, whatever that end may be and whenever that end may be. But that to me is, I think that is another one of those Scott Snyder things where it seems like a very insignificant thing that happened, and that will ultimately be one of the linchpins of this series.
I would definitely recommend do not read this book if you're tired. You need to
No.
be in the right frame of mind because
Yes.
you're going to miss so much.
Yeah. Down a
started
5 hour
reading-
energy, get a cup of coffee. I don't know what you got to do. Read it when you first wake up in the morning. I don't know. But
Yeah, I
don't do
started
it late in
reading
bed
one-
at night.
I started reading 101 and I was like, yeah, I'm way too tired to be reading this. I can't. I will forget everything. So
Yeah.
I stopped and reread those pages because you need to be on your game.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, who haven't we talked about? I feel like there's other things we haven't talked about. Pavel, their
You
pilot.
haven't.
He had a really cool moment near the end. I don't think I want to spoil that.
Yeah.
Big fan of Pavel. I think he had the least complicated backstory.
Yeah.
I think
Pretty
that was
straightforward.
I think that was intentional. I think there's also some hyperbole or some metaphor in the character Pavel for the way that that America has treated its veterans.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't mean much to you, the listener, or the viewer. However, go read the comic and then you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a damn good comic.
Yeah. There was the two like diplomats.
Yeah.
I didn't catch their name. They were kind of like the least interesting characters to me. Like they didn't really bring it's like when the United States shuts off the world, there is an European African alliance and more of a pan Pacific Asian kind of alliance.
Yeah, it's like,
and there's one
interpreter.
There's one interpreter for one diplomat for each of those sides. And the thing,
Chang is the envoy from the Pan Asia Prosperity Zone, and then Janet is the envoy from the Alliance Euro Afrique.
So the thing that was cool about Daniel, the one of the not twins, but one of the siblings, was Charlotte, is there's a little bit of like gamesmanships going on with him, and that's when they're talking about like the double cross and all that, and that's what you're thinking. Both of these two sides also have like a secret mission that they've given Daniel, and they've approached him, and you're like, well, what side is
that was really funny.
I did like that, and they gave him like he likes whiskey or scotch or whatever, and like both of them offered him this rare alcohol that he likes. So
not only it was more than that. It was
I
It
thought that
was
was
this super rare. I think it was bourbon.
bourbon. Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember. Either way, they both presented it as here's a 1977 whatever. It's the last one in the world.
Oh,
They
yeah, I
both
didn't
had the
catch
same.
that.
They both gave him the last
Same
bottle
bot.
in the world. Clearly,
Yeah,
there's plenty to go around, but
yeah. No, man. I think that was pretty good. What'd you think of the cast overall? Like, did they vibe with you? Did they not vibe with you?
So at first, I didn't really love any of them.
Yeah.
Um, then when I read the first arc together, uh, I started to really have an appreciation for Ace. Like I said,
Yeah, you
I
like
think he's I
okay.
think he's the best character. He also reminds me a lot of you because he's always prepared with some research in the year that something happened, which is something I can always count on when I'm talking to you.
uh
So there's a little bit of familiarity there with Ace in terms of how he presents himself. Um, I like Charlotte. Daniel, jury's out on. I think the
okay.
two envoys, the diplomatic envoys, are throwaways for now.
Yeah.
We'll see if they get any more interesting or if they do anything that I can seemingly care about. Valentina's kind of awesome.
She was cool. She was the one that grew on me like
Yeah.
towards the end. I was
Yeah.
just like, whatever. But then she starts getting more involved in the back half of the arc. So yeah, I would definitely say her too.
Destiny Man. I like Destiny Man a lot.
Okay.
I
Uncle
mean, the
Sam,
whole first arc has a really cool, like, Mad Max vibe to it that I really
it
like.
that's a good point. It does. It does.
Without saying too
Um,
much, there's some stuff that I just don't want to say because, like, the reveal, if anybody ends up going and reading this comic, like, some of the reveals just on the visual side, like, I don't want to ruin that
no,
because
man, I
they're
get it.
pretty shocking and, like, in a good way.
No, I totally get it.
What
Uh,
I didn't get your perspective on characters other than I know you liked Valentina. Like, what are your thoughts?
I'm pretty aligned with you. I do like Daniel. I just like the military guy. I just always like the military guy. And just
Mhm.
like the double cross angle, like which way is he gonna go? What is he gonna do? I thought that was kind of intriguing. He was the one Charlotte, that was definitely her origin story in issue number one. He was the one where I was like, oh, I see what they're kind of doing now. Like, I'm assuming in the subsequent issues we're gonna flesh out all the characters.
Mhm.
His origin story I liked. I just thought that was funny. Like he was in bed and then all these agents are making this deal with him or whatever. That's my 80s movie brain, stupid action stuff that I like. So
Nothing wrong with that.
I think we're in agreement about the throwaway report, the diplomats. Like I'm just like, all right, whatever. They're here, not
Yep.
anything.
I mean,
Ace,
they've got to serve a purpose at some point, right?
they
Like they
do.
can't be there for no reason, but they sure didn't do much other than kind of whine and complain.
And I want to know the mystery, like you hit on it about Ace. Like I want to know, he's a very like complex character, but like I want to know why can't they leave? Like are they going to turn to dust when they leave because time ages faster or whatever? Like it's a
There's,
very mysterious first arc.
but there's also, and again, I'm afraid to say too much, but
Yeah, don't give it all away.
but we also know that some people can leave
Hmm.
because
So,
at least one person in this first arc
ooh,
does
that's true.
leave.
That's true.
I
Dave,
can't say who.
I think that's it. I think that's it. I think you closed it with that. I
I mean, I don't have much more to say.
I
I
don't have
think
much more to say either.
I've said everything that I've wanted to talk about. Um, oh, one other thing. Um, and this is a small detail, but I've mentioned this before when we were talking about Saga about some of like the little things that a comic creator will do that I really appreciate. And at the end of a lot of those issues, you get quotes from people that were outside of the United States when the sealing occurred. And
Yeah.
I think those are really, really interesting. And they also gave you a timeline of the sealing.
Yes, that was interesting.
And the coolest thing about that timeline is actually not what you see in the trade, but in the single issues, you only got bits and pieces of the timeline with every issue. So by the time you got to issue 6, you had the whole
Oh,
Sealing
that's
timeline, but like he
okay.
built on it through the first 6 issues. So every issue you got another couple of bars filled in on the timeline of the Sealing.
Okay. So
And
it
that
had the
was
whole
really cool
timeline.
too.
So it had the whole timeline, and then they would reveal it.
Yeah,
That's pretty
they
cool.
would just reveal little bits and pieces of it scattered throughout. It wasn't going chronologically. You would get like a week before
Okay.
and
Even
like
cooler.
a year
The end.
before, and then you get
Yeah.
like the day of, and then like 6 months before. So it was cool how it kind of pieced itself together slowly over time. It was a nice little touch.
That's why
There's
you got
a
some.
there's a lot of world building that has gone into this comic.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
preemptive world building before they even wrote the first arc. They had done so much work on building what the United States was going to be and all of the history of what happened leading up to
Yeah.
the Sealing. And I think that that's really the best comics always have that kind of extra love and care and attention put into them. You know, they've got these rich universes to play around in. You know, we talked about it with Saga. I mentioned Invincible before when we were talking about Saga, and at some point we're going to talk about Invincible on this podcast, or I'm going to throw myself off of a high building because
Wow.
I have to talk about Invincible, or else like my head will explode. Like I can't keep it in. I get so excited. And Undiscovered Country has a lot of those parallels to me in terms of world building and a believable backstory for itself. That's, you know, makes sense in context of the comic. Now I'm done. Now I got nothing else to say. I had to get that last thing out.
I'm glad, man. I got nothing else to say. I'm looking forward to reading the second arc, hopefully having a little bit more clarity, but I'm along for the ride.
Man, you know what? I did read the second arc before. You get some answers, and in true Scott Snyder fashion, you get even more questions, I think. So I'm excited to reread it. I've only read that once, so I'm excited to go back and read it again and see what I missed the first time, because I probably missed a lot.
Beautiful.
I'm glad you dug it, though. I'm glad that my recommendation didn't miss.
Nope, it didn't. It definitely did miss. It came through in the end. So
love it. So next week, I think we're throwing it back next week, right? We're going to talk about some 90s Marvel comics.
I sure hope so. Yeah, I want to. I think I don't want to blow through all the Undiscovered Country. I think we kind of bank it, maybe knock one of them out here or there once a month, but maybe jump around a little bit. We'll do a little Marvel, DC, kind of do whatever. We'll figure it out.
All right. So if you like 90s Marvel, come back next week. Got a little something for you. It's a little on the occult side of things. I won't say anymore. But we do appreciate you listening or watching if you saw this on YouTube. We'll catch y'all in a week. Take care. Bye.
Peace.